and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It is Friday, it is the 16th of January. It is cataclysmic, ladies and gentlemen. I know you've been waiting for me to come on. Some of you were saying yesterday, if only Mike Graham had a show in the afternoon, he could have talked about Robert Jenrick defecting to Reform. Well, I'll tell you what, we were here filming Plank of the Week when he defected to Reform. We'll play you a bit of that coming up. Reem Ibrahim is here with us to walk us through the papers and look at all the headlines. Headlines such as, stop fighting each other and end the Labour nightmare, on the front page of the Daily Mail. The front page of the Sun, they've actually got a traitors thing up here. I don't know if you can see it. You can see all the papers there. I'll show you that in a second. Yeah, there you go. Traitors, they've sort of got Kemi Badenoch in the middle. They've got banished Jenrick and defection to Farage. They've got sacked by Kemi after plot rumbled. The Times is going with Jenrick defects to Reform after sacking by Badenoch. Farage's party of Tory failures is the Mirror. Jenrick joins Reform with blast at rotten Tories. The secret traitor. Front page of the Telegraph. Jenrick, Tories broke Britain. I mean, this is about as exciting as it gets for people who are interested in what is going on in the big, wide world of who's running this country. Happy Friday, everyone. It's the first, what's it called? Super Chat. Canastria gives us that. Thank you very much indeed. Morning from Cumbria, says Dandy. Happy Friday, Mike and all, says ex-Pia Ladosis. Good morning from Sale in Cheshire, says Peter. Cornishman living in Yorkshire, man from Kernow. Happy Friday. What a time to be alive. There's so much to talk about this morning because obviously it's an incredible day to be on the right side of the political divide because, you know, depending on who you are, and we'll be speaking to lots of guests this morning, including Tim Montgomery, who's now Reform, former Conservative, of course, as to how powerful this now makes Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage and Robert Jenrick together, I would have to say, is a very, very powerful and very persuasive operation, I think. Kemi Badenoch has also come out of it reasonably well because she's basically fired the one man who could have taken her job. He's not in the Tory party anymore. However, the Tories are finished, aren't they? Isn't that the whole point? We want to hear from all of you, of course. Keep yourselves on board with the chat on YouTube. We've got so much to do, so much to talk about. We've got 2 hours to do it in. Let's say a very good morning to Reem. Reem,
hi, good morning.
Very good to see you. What an extraordinary day yesterday. People were calling it, you know, one of the biggest kind of, you know, political earthquakes in certainly the last 2 or 3 years. And I think, I don't know what you think, but I mean, this makes, I think, Nigel Farage's position even stronger than it was last week, doesn't it?
I'm not so sure. I mean, it absolutely is a position of strength that Nigel Farage is in, especially when you're looking at polling. And everybody that sort of, you know, in the city wanted Reform to be taken a little bit more seriously has said, actually, what we need is for somebody like Robert Jenrick to go and join Reform. And obviously now that that's happened, but the way it happened, Mike, I think is really what's important and perhaps makes this a bit less certain in terms of my confidence for what this looks like for Reform than it otherwise would have done. Because if Jenrick had, you know, if things had gone the way that Jenrick wanted, he had handed in his resignation, he had done this big political moment yesterday in the way that he would have wanted, perhaps, then this would have been absolutely astronomical. But what actually happened was Kemi Badenoch opened up her laptop and filmed a little video on her webcam and caused all the chaos, saying that actually they have ample evidence that Jenrick is going to defect. So she sacked him, removed the Tory whip, and that was, I think, incredibly embarrassing for Jenrick.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's walk ourselves through it because let's kick off with what Kemi Badenoch said yesterday. I mean, it came absolutely out of the blue. We were sitting here filming Plank of the Week, bizarrely, and suddenly, you know, this the news alert came up. You know, Robert Jenrick sacked from the cabinet, shadow cabinet, and kicked out the Tory party. Let's have a look at what Kemi Badenoch did.
Sorry, come down, Mike.
Oh, sorry, we haven't got it. You know what else I haven't done? You know, I did this yesterday. I forgot to put my earpiece in, which means that I can't actually hear anything that's going on. Never mind. I'll fix that. But I take that point. But I think from a lot of people's perspective, you know, that's very much inside the Westminster bubble. And that's not an insult to you. It's just that, you know, you work inside the Westminster bubble. I think for most people outside of this studio and in the wider context of the country, they don't really know how it works. They don't really care how it works. All they know is that one of the most senior Tory politicians, who was probably on the right side of the Conservative Party, has suddenly now gone to the other side.
Only about 5 minutes ago, though. Let's not forget that Robert Jenrick was practically a Lib Dem in the Conservative Party only about 5 years ago.
Well, he voted Remain as well, didn't he?
And he voted Remain, and all of a sudden he's going to be working with Farage. I also think, and I do actually like Robert Jenrick sort of as a person and as a politician, but my God, he went from basically being on the left of the Conservative Party, then deciding that he wanted, that he was ambitious, that he wanted to lead the party, couldn't handle the fact that Kemi Badenoch beat him fair and square, and then all of a sudden decides that he wants to effectively oppose Kemi Badenoch, or indeed then defect to Reform. I don't think it's going to last as bromance between Jenrick and Nigel. I actually think what perhaps may happen is there's going to be some personality clashes. Nigel Farage is the show. He is the star of Reform. And I don't think Jenrick is going to be able to handle taking a back seat.
No. Well, we'll see. I mean, the interesting thing is that it appears that the relationship between Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, while they were both in the Tory party,
was rather friendly.
Was maybe not particularly friendly, but it was workable.
Yeah.
Jenrick went out and started doing these videos, like the one where he sort of confronted the people not paying their fares on the tube, where he confronted shoplifters and all of that. And I think he sort of made a character for himself. And to be honest, I'm not one of those people who says that politicians should be completely and utterly consistent with their views, because I don't think people generally are. I mean, you and I have probably changed positions on various things.
Oh, definitely.
At certain points in our lives. I'm not one of those unforgiving people. And the thing that I really dislike actually is the kind of the people who think that Nigel Farage is no longer fit to run Reform. They'd rather have Rupert Lowe back. They want Ben Habib to do something, and they're so sort of poisoned by, what they hate about Nigel Farage that they can't see the wood for the trees.
Well, it's like right-wing infighting, and I just find it all particularly pathetic, if I'm being honest. The problem is, and this is something I find interesting, is that the economic policies that Reform have actually announced have been pretty left-wing. I mean, removing the two-child benefit cap, trying to nationalise steel, all of those policies I actually think are relatively on the left of Corbyn, if we're being honest. So Reform are a really interesting, I think, failed coalition, or at least it'll eventually fail, because what you have is a bunch of voters that actually want more government spending. They want their pensions protected, which we know are completely unaffordable. They want more government spending on welfare benefits, because many of them, quite frankly, are on benefits. And they want things like the nationalisation of steel, more government intervention. I don't think that Reform, or at least the politicians within Reform, really know, and especially when it comes to the economy, which quite frankly is the most important thing I think at the moment. When we've got, yesterday we saw GDP figures show that we were on 0.1% growth in November.
No growth at all.
0.3%, sorry. It's insane, but when we're looking at the average, we're basically growing just about 0.1% on average, and that is really utterly abysmal, especially when we're looking at the rest of the G7. America is so far ahead, they're growing at about 3.5%. Now, what does that actually mean? It means people's jobs. It means that people actually have the opportunities. It means that businesses are growing. It means that energy costs are down. Those things aren't occurring in the UK. And when you're looking at the political offering or the policy offering from Reform, I don't really think that it's going to solve the problem. It's sort of more of the same kind of mollycoddling. We're going to just spend more money. We're going to tax more. It's not really the same sort of, it's not really the actual radical policies that we need.
Okay, all right, interesting point. Again, I'm going to say that's again inside the Beltway kind of talk though, because I think people need to feel inspired.
But people aren't going to feel better when we end immigration. That isn't going to solve everything.
Well, let's ask them. But let's have a look, first of all, at what Kemi Badenoch said. I think we've got the clip now.
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the shadow cabinet. I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his shadow cabinet colleagues. It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader could. Because the British public are tired of political psychodrama. So am I. They saw too much of it in the last government, they're seeing too much of it in this government. I will not repeat those mistakes. When I was elected leader, I committed to doing politics differently. Disloyalty and dishonesty undermine trust in politics. They're also disrespectful to our party members, our councillors, MPs, and most of all, voters. You all deserve better. Conservatives suffered a heavy defeat in 2024. That was painful, but we are rebuilding, with strong principles, clear plans, and with a serious team united around a shared purpose. When individuals choose to walk away from that effort for personal ambition, that tells you nothing about the Conservative Party and everything you need to know about them. There will be more to say, and I know a lot of commentary about this decision. But I want you all to be in no doubt. It's a time of global uncertainty. I am focused on holding the government to account, ensuring they are acting in the national interest, and that Conservatives deliver a proper plan for a stronger economy, stronger borders, and a stronger Britain.
That was Kemi Badenoch yesterday, who announced, in a shock announcement, it has to be said, that she basically fired Robert Jenrick, who was the only person really in the Tory party who could have succeeded her if she does badly in May. But let's have a look at what people are saying. Kemi is now busted flush, says Witch Hazel. Patriotic Tories should switch to reform, says Susie. She's just talking to herself, says Mark. Nobody is listening to Kemi, the procrastinator. You know, it's interesting how people are seeing this, because I think as we break it down, there are seemingly, to me, I mean, the front page of the Mail, I think, says quite a lot. Stop fighting each other and end the Labour nightmare. Britain's economy is moribund. Our borders are broken. Our armed forces are badly depleted. Our Prime Minister's an ocean-going socialist dud. And Jenrick's defection rocks the right. Daily Mail's message to reform. I mean, they've got so much on this. And I think they've got Robert Jenrick actually writing a piece for them as well.
Yeah, the Mail today is fantastic. And also Jenrick wrote a piece in The Telegraph, I think, an op-ed, where he effectively explained that he thinks that the Conservatives and Labour are both broken. And that's part of why. I mean, I'm sorry, but maybe this is just a Westminster bubble thing, but I just think the fact that he was sacked before he got the chance to resign makes him look a little bit incompetent. Or
listen, and a lot of people share that view, and I'm not making out that you're a weirdo for saying that. You know, absolutely not. And a lot of you, I mean, one of the things that we're going to be asking people actually throughout the course of the show today is who's going to be next? You know, who's going to be? Is it Larry the Cat? Is he going to
defect to reform?
You know,
the thing is, Mike, I mean, I'm not a defender of the Conservative Party by all means. I really do think that they. I mean,
do you really think the Conservative Party has a future? Because
I
don't.
I do. I mean, they are the oldest political party in British history. The problem is we're looking at the problems that the Conservative Party presided over in government, and I do think that they are unforgivable. You've got the highest tax burdens in the Second World War. You've got extraordinarily sluggish growth, the COVID lockdowns. All of those things I think are pretty unforgivable. But that doesn't necessarily mean that reform taking on all these former washed-up Tories is going to make them any better.
Well, yeah, but I think you also have to be pragmatic about it, don't you? And I mean, we had this argument when Nadeem Zahawi was announced and unveiled and generally thought to be...
But that's different because what Nadeem Zahawi does in his retirement is quite frankly no business
but what I'm about to say is that, you know, a lot of people were very critical of that because not only did they not enjoy the fact that Nadeem Zahawi was, you know, pretty much an unbridled, you know, kind of ambitious, very, very greedy man, but that he also was somebody who was very much in favour of lockdowns, he was very much in favour of vaccine passports.
Well, he was the vaccine minister.
Yeah, a lot of the things that
These
a lot of reform people don't want.
Vaccine passports.
Yes, of course. But what I'm saying is that, you know, again, you have to make the pragmatic argument that if you want to be in government and you want to have a party which has a collection of all the talents, if you like, there are going to be people who have been in government before that you're going to need to bring over. I think it would be unrealistic to expect
people
reform.
like Nadine Dorries, who literally, like, the architect of the Online Safety Act that has meant that so much of our free speech online is being restricted. She was accepted into Reform with open arms. She was on stage at Reform Party conference. Yeah. I really do worry about the fact that people want from Reform. What do people want from Reform? They want an anti-establishment change. They want change.
Yeah, but is that realistic though?
I think it perhaps
Can you
is.
actually have an anti-establishment?
I think it's more realistic. Yeah, I think it's more realistic not having all of these washed-up Tories in Reform.
Yeah, but, you know, what's the alternative then?
Having new people like Nigel Farage, having people like...
But there aren't people like Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is a one-off, right? You can't find another 100 people like Nigel Farage.
You can find
another 10 people.
You can find 100 new candidates that will stand at the election. Just be patient. You cannot start accepting...
100's not enough.
Well, you need 650.
You need 600. You need about 400 people, right?
Candidates.
And if you're telling me that you cannot involve previously, employed cabinet ministers, then I think you're cutting off your own nose to spite your face. You're thinking like a sixth former who literally is going, but I want the world to be full of flowers and beautiful things and people to be nice and butterflies.
I'm not saying what I want. I'm saying what a lot of people want from Reform.
I'm saying
Reform
the people.
members want change. They want difference. They said that the Conservative Party and Labour have completely failed in government, which they have.
Yes.
But whilst you're accepting these people that have literally presided over all of that, Robert Jenrick was in cabinet. He was presiding over the lockdowns and these new regulations and restrictions and the taxes. He voted for it.
Yeah, but we live in the real
world. And
now
Nigel Farage is accepting him with open arms, saying, no, welcome, come, you're welcome here, honey, after you've been sacked by your own leader.
Because we live in the real world. And when you live in the real world, there are things that are unpalatable. For example, when I get on the tube, there are people on the tube I'd rather I didn't have to share a train carriage with. But I know that I have to get on the tube because I have to get where I'm going.
Yeah, that's compromise.
The tube is not as I would like it to be. It would be nice if somebody stood at the end of it with a glass of champagne and said, welcome, Mr. Graham, thank you very much for travelling on the tube.
I'm saying, I don't think
let's be realistic.
I don't think reform accepting former Tories that have basically failed in their careers add legitimacy. I think it actually detracts from it.
Okay, and that's a valid point, and many people would agree with you. I'm just saying I think that we have to, if you really want to get rid of the Labour government, if you really want to see a right-wing government in this country, reform is the only way.
Don't accept Lib Dems from the Conservative Party.
The point is that the Reform Party is the only viable party which is going to get any kind of level of success in the ballot box, right, at the next election, and you will not get anything like that from Advance. You know, the Ben Habib party, nothing at all. Rupert Lowe, you might like him, you might think he's a very fine individual. People have got different views on that, but he's not going to become the government. You know, Reform is the only real valid reason to get the Labour government out, and they're the only people that are likely to succeed. Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage said yesterday. We've got a whole bunch of clips that I'm going to play you. He thanks Kemi Badenoch basically for handing him Robert Jenrick.
Say thank you to Kemi Badenoch. This is the latest Christmas present I've ever had. The negotiations with Jenrick are over. There's nothing more to be said or to be done. You've handed me on a plate the man that is by far the most popular figure, 60% approval rating on Con Home compared to our own 38. And you've perhaps today really done anything, more than anybody in history, to help realign the centre-right of British politics, which is much needed against a dreadful Labour government and an increasingly worrying extreme left-wing voice in this country. So I can't offer you drinks all round, but I'll buy Kemi lunch next week and say thank you. And on that note, I will welcome Robert Jenrick into this room and into Reform UK. All right. He hasn't changed his mind, has he? We can't find him. Is he coming, Nick? It's been a funny old... This would be a very funny end of the day, wouldn't it? This really would.
That's Nigel Farage yesterday. I mean, everybody was taken by surprise, basically. And as I said, we were filming Plank of the Week yesterday afternoon, which is going out tonight, by the way, at 7 o'clock. We'll play a little clip from that as well. Fantastic show. Second one only that we've done. But we've really got them going here. Simon has sent us a super chat for 20 quid. Simon, very good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're here with Reem Ibrahim. We're having a bit of a set too, has to be said. She's not happy that Robert Jenrick has gone to Reform. She's not happy that Reform is hoovering up all these ex-Tories. She doesn't think it's good. But let's have a look at what some of you are saying. Mike, you've been in this business for a long time and you know how cruel it can be. Mike Graham for PM, the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. One thing here is two people here, no need to talk over the host. We're trying not to talk over each other, but we're very worked up about this because Reema's got a perfect right to her opinion, as indeed do you. And this is what we do here at the Home of Common Sense. We don't shut people off just because they disagree with us.
We have open debate and conversation.
We argue with them, right? Now, a lot of people have got things to say. Hi, Reem, she's so lovely. I met her at Reform Conference, says Heda.
Oh,
I had a chat and a pic with her. Nadine Dorries is on Epstein's list, says John. I don't know about that. I love Farage, says Valerie. At least Boris played with Larry. Vote Farage in at least until Trump's term ends. I think it would serve you well. I mean, I think what's interesting about this whole, Farage for Prime Minister situation is, as I said, there are so many different moving parts, right? And of course, the right is going to be, sort of in some ways splintered. But if you think about Boris Johnson, when Boris Johnson was elected Prime Minister in 2019, was it?
Yeah.
Everybody had such high hopes for him. He was going to get Brexit done. Yeah. He was going to take us out of the European single market. He was going to stop immigration. He was going to bring it down to 20,000. He was the great hero of the Tory party. He was the only person that everybody thought could unite the right and could make the country great again. And of course, it all disintegrated, right? Because I think the nature of politics in the end is that, many of these people that we look up to at some point or other become these kind of paper tigers and they just disappear into nothing.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Boris Johnson, I think, was a particular disappointment. I must say, I actually campaigned for him because I grew up in Uxbridge and South Ruislip in the constituency he stood in. And I campaigned for him in 2019. I wasn't old enough to vote yet. I thought he was really, really quite charming. I think he was probably one of the best communicators in the Conservative Party. And he presided over the lockdowns, the highest tax burden since the Second World War.
Right.
I mean, I think Partygate, for me, is still completely unforgivable. The fact that the Conservatives in government who claim to care about civil liberties and freedoms, and they were talking about vaccine passports, and I think personally, I think the lockdowns wearing masks, making them mandatory. I, as a libertarian, am completely against lockdowns. I'm not one of those people that says, the first one was okay, the second one was. No. Yeah. All of them. The government telling you that you cannot leave your home is never okay, ever.
Right.
And when we're looking at other countries like Sweden that did not lock down, they had a difference in mortality rates by about 3.2%.
Yes.
We did not save that many lives by forcing everybody to stay at home. What we should have done is said, as advised, the elderly, those that are vulnerable, they can stay at home. And the reason why I mention this, Mike, is because I think sometimes we have goldfish memories. We forget what has actually happened in the past. And I will not forget the impact that lockdowns had on my younger sister who was in school, who couldn't get to school and couldn't socialise. When I was still in sixth form and couldn't take my A-level exams, I had to go into my first year of university, making no friends because I was forced to stay at home. It was utterly abysmal and unforgivable. And the fact that they did that, and somebody like Boris Johnson, who I thought perhaps had some integrity, perhaps naively, then partied in number 10, breaking all of the rules because it was one rule for them and one rule for us. And I think many people in this country are still upset about it.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I think also we have to get over some of those things. We have to move on to the next level, and we have to think about people like Robert Jenrick, who was, let's not forget, only a year and a half ago being touted as possibly the next leader of the Tory party, right? I think you have to accept that the Tory party are in many respects a dead duck. They haven't really got much hope. They're going to get slaughtered at the next elections, the local elections in May. Right? Kerry Badenoch would have probably been out of a job, and Jenrick would have probably got the job in May or June. What we now have is a kind of, like I say, what you would like to think of as a government in waiting, if it's reform, with talented people there. And Robert Jenrick, whatever you may think of him, whatever you may say about him, is a pretty talented politician. And I think he connects with the public. If you can name me 5 government ministers or 5 members of the shadow cabinet who are more in touch with the human race than Robert Jenrick, I'll give you a free glass of champagne.
I'd love that, especially this
coming up after 9 o'clock today.
This time in the morning.
Yeah.
I think he's a very good communicator. There are lots of very good communicators. I think that the internal dynamic within reform and the fact that Jenrick is going to have to be the second man, the sort of second to the number one, which is Farage, is going to be a difficult feat for him. I also think that this idea that the Conservative Party is completely dead, I don't believe to be true, especially when you're looking at the polls. Reform sort of peaked and then sort of dipped.
They're still leading,
They're leading, but I think what we're actually going to end up with, if we had an election tomorrow, we'd probably end up with a hung parliament. If the Conservatives and Reform both did a bit better, we'll probably end up with a coalition. And I also think, by the way, just talking about reality and practicality, I think that Farage is probably aware of the fact that he won't get a majority, and probably aware of the fact that they will, if we were to have some kind of right-wing government, perhaps have Reform as the majority and be in coalition with the Conservatives.
Yeah.
I do believe that.
I think a lot of people watching this show, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of people watching this show would accept that, because I think, again, there are so many people who are in sort of some ways intransigent about whether or not Reform should be completely different. I've seen some stories, some comments over the last 24 hours of people saying, Reform are just like the Tories and Labour. We thought they'd be different. Well, the thing is, you've got to be practical. As I say, you have got to understand that in order to gain power in this country, you can't suddenly put on a Che Guevara mask and go, we're going to have a revolution. That's not how it works.
Something I find fascinating, Mike, and I hope you'll humour me with this, is the idea that we're currently facing political realignment. So Reform as sort of being positioned as the more right-wing party.
Yes.
But what does that actually mean? Well, when you're looking at their policies and the sort of language that they're using, it's predominantly anti-immigration, and the immigration issue is where they've really been sort of on the right on. But almost everything else has been what one may call big government, or sort of left of Corbyn. And then you've got the Conservative Party, who are sort of finding their niche, especially when it comes to the economy. What I find fascinating when it comes to this political realignment theory is the idea that those of us, myself included, that believe in free markets, that believe in low taxes, small government, people being able to keep more of their own money in their own pockets, people being able to spend their money rather than having a government bureaucrat spend it for them. Those people are increasingly being squeezed out by the right. And I do think it's interesting when we're thinking about what position Reform and the Conservative Party will actually take on the right. What does it mean to be on the right? What does it mean to be a conservative?
Yes.
What does it mean to be perhaps even a free marketeer? And there are many in Reform, I think, especially when you're looking at the people not like Nigel. I think Farage is probably a bit more of a Thatcherite, but everybody else is a little bit more big government. They want the nationalisation of steel. I mean, Tyson, those energy policies he announced last year were, banning battery energy storage systems, adding regulations, adding restrictions. A lot of the time the instinct tends to be pro-ban, pro-government, pro-restriction. And that isn't policies that I personally am interested in. And those of us that sort of call ourselves classical liberals or free marketers don't want that.
But you won't find that in the Tory party either. So where are you going to find it?
Well, indeed. But this is the point.
So where are you finding that?
Well, I'm politically homeless.
Right.
And this is but what I find fascinating about this is if you're a Thatcherite, where do you go? If you believe in low taxes, free markets, a smaller government, where do you go? Because I'm not seeing that from Reform, not seeing it in the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
Where do you go?
Fascinating stuff. Lots of you have got things to say. Farage is just amazing with the media, says Shoddy. Here's one from Canastria, says, Mike, very feisty this morning. I bet Farage wasn't laughing when the cameras had gone, when he didn't come out when introduced. I don't like many of Ream's views, says man from Kerno. Have faith in Nigel, he's a strong leader. A lot of people saying, I don't agree with Ream on everything, but I do on this point. Loyalty doesn't pay with most things. Today, Jenrick is a fine politician. I like Mike and Talk TV, you just get to move on in life. That's the thing. I think practicalities will always dictate that in the end, in politics, as in life, as in marriage, as in friendship, you have to make compromises, I don't like everything about every single one of my friends. I don't share their views on everything. I've been married once, got divorced. We didn't agree on everything. Life is not a bowl of cherries. You can't expect somebody to come up and pitch up in front of you. There we go. Denny says Winston Churchill switched parties twice. Politicians are only human, and perhaps even more so because in the end they've got principles which they're very happy to sell out and change. And I think we shouldn't be holding them to such a high standard that we end up, as you say, politically homeless.
I think
anything to get rid of this Labour government is what I say.
Well, I agree with that, to be honest. I mean, this government has been utterly abysmal. But the problem is, when you've got, where do you draw the line? I, by the way, don't really care that very much about party politics. I don't care if individual politicians are in power. What I care about is really the policies. I want lower taxes. I want a smaller government. I want less regulation. I want to...
And Reform will bring that to you, I think.
I don't know. I want a Great Britain that I want my children to be born in and live in, and I don't see that at the moment. And this is the real worry. Lots of people across this country do not feel as though they're better off because the economy is not growing.
They're not better off because Labour are in control, and before that, the Tories were in control. They were pretty bad as well. So the only hope really then is to try and get something different in, and surely there's something different is Reform.
But the policy offering isn't different, and this is my point about accepting people like Jenrick into Reform. These are people that presided over the highest tax burdens in the Second World War. They presided over the lockdowns. They looked at the vaccine passports. They voted for national insurance increases. They wanted this. They voted for it. As politicians in government, they voted for it.
Yeah, but Jenrick will probably tell you that he was not in favour of that. Don't forget, he resigned as immigration minister because he thought the immigration policy wasn't working.
Right. So, actually, no, I didn't want that, but I voted for it to save my career. So you've got no principles.
Well, I don't expect politicians to have principles. They are human beings who are not people who are worthy of my...
What a sad state of affairs we live in.
Well, then that's real. That's realpolitik. That's reality. It's a bit like saying, I really.
So what change are we getting with Reform?
Well,
what's the difference
well,
between the Conservatives and Labour?
The difference is that they're not Keir Starmer, who is, let's not forget, the most hideous and most useless Prime Minister we've ever had
Fine,
in the
but
world.
what are we getting that's different?
We have to get rid of him, and you have to put your faith...
I agree, but what are we getting that's different?
You have to put your faith in a party that is not going to bang on about net zero all the time,
Fine,
that is going to dismantle that, is also going to do something about immigration.
What are we getting with reform?
You're getting a party that is promising to do something actually concrete about immigration, to stop people coming here, to have them removed from the country, which is a damaging thing in this country. You're also going to have a much more pro-business.
Are we?
Yes, I think so.
Are we?
Yes.
Because I don't see any policies that they've announced that have been particularly pro-business.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and defend reform. Okay?
Is the nationalisation of steel.
I'm not going to sit here and defend
the
reform.
removal of the two-child benefit cap.
Don't talk over me because it doesn't work. Wait till I finish. You cannot say that Reform are not offering anything different. They are offering something different because they are saying what they're going to do differently. I'm not going to sit here and defend them. I don't vote for Reform. I don't vote for anybody, right? But I do see that what we need in this country is somebody with a different point of view. And I've known Nigel Farage for a very long time. And this is a guy who understands business. He understands the markets. He understands the city. He understands that immigration is the biggest single problem in this country. And he will change the way that this country operates.
On this point about immigration, I'm totally with you. I understand that, you look at all of the polls, people are very, very upset about high levels of immigration. However, if we ended immigration tomorrow, all of these same economic problems would exist, and actually I think they may be worse. Because what we've currently got is the government we want to end immigration, we want to restrict immigration. So we
want to deport people.
Well, and what's happened is they've restricted all of the legal immigration, the people that are actually working. And we still have large numbers of illegal immigration and also large numbers of people that are dependent on the state. So we are actually
because the Labour government is in charge. Reform is not in charge, right?
But I'm saying that the immigration that we actually want is being restricted because it's easy, because it's legal. And the immigration we don't want still occurs because of all of the legal implications like the ECHR. So my point is, even if we end immigration tomorrow, and I think that for reform in government will be very, very hard line on immigration,
I think so.
What do we get next? What does this country actually look like? Because immigration will not solve all of our problems.
But you're sitting here telling me why nothing is going to work, but you don't have a solution.
I do.
You just
told
not
me, a political
solution. No, you don't. You
tell
tell me that you're politically homeless. You don't have a party to vote for. You don't have an idea of who you want to have in government. So what are you going to do?
Leave.
There you go. See, she's emigrating. She's leaving the country, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when you get politically homeless and you find that you try to get the truth out of people and they go, I'm just going to leave the country. It's like all these patriots that go and live in Spain. I'm a patriot. I live in Spain. I'm going to protect you. A couple of other stories to talk about very quickly before I let you go. Apparently, the first hotel is going to be built on the moon very soon.
How exciting.
We're going to look for a name. I want you to tell us what you would call it, the first hotel. Apparently, if you're still single when you're in your late 20s, it might be because you're too clever to find a partner, which is interesting. Also, the White House has come out overnight and said that the Labour government is actually curbing democracy with the 4 million people who are now not going to be allowed to vote, with the fact that they're locking people up for tweets that they shouldn't be making. And finally, the West Midlands Police Chief, Craig Guilford, apparently might resign today.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, what I find interesting about the White House intervention is the Trump administration have been very good at responding to what the UK government have been doing. Especially, can we just talk about the grok restrictions and the expat?
Definitely.
I mean,
please.
I found it utterly embarrassing to see so many young women put photos of themselves into grok, ask it to put them in a bikini, and then post it on X and act outraged.
Yes.
It's attention seeking. And honestly, let's be honest about this. X and grok and AI cannot undress you. It's a CGI image, it's a fake image, that's pretending to be you. It's no different to Photoshop, it's no different to painting a picture of you.
Right.
And that should not be illegal. And there are absolutely legitimate uses. For example, if I wanted to see what I look like in a yellow bikini, because I'm going on holiday next week, I want to see what I look like, but I'm can't really be asked to go to the shops. I might put a photograph of myself into grok and say, put me in a yellow bikini.
Right.
That is
But you probably wouldn't then tweet it out though, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And I won't post photos of myself in a bikini. But that is a legitimate use of grok, and therefore I should be able to do it and it shouldn't be illegal. Right. The fact that the government tried to restrict this because they are effectively blaming the tool and not the user.
Yes.
If you are somebody, if you're a wrong-un, and you put photographs of women unconsensually into grok and you ask them to be in uncompromising positions, then obviously you are the problem, not the tool.
Yes.
If I paint a picture of you naked, Mike, Is the pen and paper to blame or am I to blame?
I think you're to blame.
Exactly.
I think you've been a very troubled young woman if that's what you want to do. But if you want, I'll provide you with a free naked picture if you like after the show. But no, I mean, the thing is, you're absolutely right. And of course, Keir Starmer, as ever, completely and utterly useless on all of these things. Immediately, he thought that Grok had sort of taken a step back and Elon Musk had said, we're not going to do it.
On this.
He
Kenny
suddenly was
Bainlock
back.
came and said,
After not being on Twitter for about 5 days, he suddenly started posting on Twitter again. And you're kind of going, well, hang on a minute, I thought you wanted to ban it, you know, like 5 minutes ago. Now you're saying that you've won some kind of major victory. And it's sweating the small stuff, isn't it? It's like, you know, there's massive problems with grooming gangs. There's massive problems with pornography, you know, with children being sexualised in all sorts of places like Snapchat, like, you know,
it's
porn,
funny you
porn
mentioned
websites.
Snapchat because people are talking about, oh, you know, this is all like sexual exploitation. The vast majority of sexual exploitation happens over Snapchat.
Yeah.
And the reason for this, and I'm aware of this because I am not that old, I'm 23, and I remember what it was like when I was a teenager.
God almighty.
Only a few years ago. I remember what it was like on Snapchat. It was because you can, you know, the photos delete after 24 hours. Sorry, the photos delete immediately after you open them. God, I've not used it in so long. And it means that basically it's used for sending nudes. And when you are a child, whether it be, you know, under the age of 18.
And much of that goes on, right? I mean, I was saying to
it's
Pooch,
so common.
I was going home yesterday. I had quite a busy day. Was here for a while. We filmed Plank of the Week. We went over to the gym. Blah, blah, blah. Coming back, schools were kicking out basically, and I was standing at a bus stop in Bermondsey, waiting for a bus to get home. And every single kid, and they were all aged from about, I don't know, 11 to about 14, 15, every single one of them on their phone. And I thought to myself, you know, here's Keir Starmer talking about banning under 16s from using Snapchat or using social media or using phones. I mean, good luck with that, because they're literally all on a phone.
I'm really against it, and I think it's up to parents. I'll give you the example of my sister, who is 11, and she just started secondary school. She's got a mobile phone, but she's restricted to 1 hour a day, and even I think that's too much. But she's not allowed any of these social media apps, and I'm the one that really disciplines her, because my parents are in their mid-50s and don't really understand any of it. But I'm very strict about it, because I think it's really damaging. And if any parents are listening, please do not let your underage kid have Snapchat. It is so bad. It is one of the easiest places to be exploited by adults who, you know, when you're naive and you're 12, 13, you think you're a nice person. I mean, I had it done to me when I was a kid. Snapchat is, I think, one of the most awful accounts. And the reason for that is because everything deletes. So you have no idea what actually occurs.
So people aren't frightened of putting terrible things there because it will disappear.
Nudes. I must have been about 13, 14, and somebody added me on Snapchat, and I just thought, oh, that's nice new friend. So I was talking to them, and they just sent me I don't want to say what the video was, but you can imagine what it was. Well, a video of them touching themselves.
Oh, God.
It was
I mean,
awful.
this is the thing. And, you know, technology, and it's very much a case of technology overtaking kind of the knowledge of those people who are using it.
But the thing is, these tech companies have made it extremely easy for parents to add restrictions. You know, I really don't think we should be blaming the tech companies here at all. Parents, take responsibility.
Yeah, totally.
Look after your kid. Don't expect the government to do it for you. You are the parent. You take responsibility.
Yeah, totally right. Reem, you're on fire this morning. I mean, she come in more often with not very much sleep, because it's great. She's been up quite late tonight. So listen, a fabulous conversation. We've got so many great messages coming in. So many of you disagreeing with Reem, disagreeing with me, disagreeing with both of us, agreeing with both of us. That's what we do here at the Home of Common Sense. It is the true and real Home of Common Sense. Coming up, we'll be playing you what happened yesterday when the news broke on Plank of the Day. We'll be telling you who Plank of the Day actually is, but also we'll be bringing you the news with Edward Hughes next.
Good morning. Here's a summary of today's UK news headlines, Friday 16th January 2026. I'm Edward Hughes. The big story remains the bitterly cold snap gripping much of the country, with ongoing yellow warnings for snow and ice across northern England, Scotland and parts of Wales. I'm glad that's not warnings of yellow snow. Frank Zappa. Elsewhere, the fallout continues from Robert Jenrick's dramatic defection to Reform UK, with Kemi Badenoch having sacked him amid Tory infighting. And tech regulators are watching closely as X halts certain Grok AI image features following backlash over deepfakes. I'm sure I once saw this deepfake video about a newsreader who was doing something nasty with photos, but he was let off and still kept his massive pension. I mean, who would believe that to be true? Oh, and by the way, I hear Mrs. Hughes was on the show yesterday. I do hope she didn't embarrass me. Likes a beverage, that one, but I love her. That's your quick roundup. Stay warm and keep an eye on those weather updates. Later, Tigers.
The news with Edward Hughes. Thanks very much indeed to Reem Ibrahim, who is a fantastic guest, very, very feisty in the first thing in the morning. It's coming up to 7:40. I would call the hotel Giant Steps, says Carol, in request to the hotel on the moon. Surely the first moon hotel has to be called Lunar Base. Very good. Hotel California's got to be in there. Hotel on the moon for illegals, says Tom. Yeah, that's a great idea. Send them to the moon. Can you imagine? You land at Dover, right? They take your phone off you. They take the phone off you. Right? They give you a blanket, give you a pizza, and say, like, over here, put them in a rocket. You go off to the moon with you. Send the politicians there, says Twiggy. This is a great idea. This is possibly the greatest idea I've ever had for how to deal with illegal immigration. Send them to the moon. The hotel name says Peter should be out of this world. Absolutely fantastic. Half Moon Pub, says Brian. Very good. Nicely done. And so many of you have got thoughts on what we were arguing about with reform. Because the thing is, right, I believe, absolutely, here's a super chat from Morriman. Anyone saying she needs to grow up is an old fart. And I think that's about Reem, because a lot of people are saying, Reem comes across as somebody who doesn't know what she's talking about. But lots of you think that she's actually talking a great deal of sense. The point is this, right? If you're going to be a sensible individual and you're going to think about what the next government is going to look like, and you're going to get rid of Keir Starmer, and you don't want Kemi Badenoch, and you don't want the Uni Party, you have to give reform a chance, surely, to heavens. I get accused of being a reform sort of, encourager and somebody who won't hear anything bad against them. Actually, not true, because we had Nadeem Zahawi yesterday named as a plank of the week because of the fact that he was brought in by Nigel Farage, and it didn't go well for people who actually support reform. So the thing is, at the end of the day, I think you have to be practical. I think you have to be sensible. I think you have to realise that not everything in the world is going to turn out just the way you want it. And I think you've got to give reform a chance. Beverly says this, Mike, I've just realised that Keir Starmer is an AI bot like Edward Hughes, only with less personality. Yeah, absolutely right. Well, I think what we should do now, though, is play Plank of the Day.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
And my plank of the day today is actually Kemi Badenoch. She's on all the front pages, of course, looking strong, looking like she did the right thing with Robert Jenrick. She found out that he was going to defect, and so she decided to cut him loose before he could do that to himself. But have a look at this, because this was the moment when we were filming Plank of the Week yesterday. This was the moment that the news broke that Robert Jenrick had in fact been sacked. Quite an astonishing thing has happened as we sit here in our lovely new studio. Robert Jenrick has just been sacked by Kemi Badenoch from the shadow cabinet and kicked out of the party on the basis that he was poised to defect.
Yeah.
Wow. So I don't know whether that makes him a plank or Kemi a plank. I guess we'll wait and see, but we'll get to that a bit later on. But I just wanted to with a bit of breaking news. There's nothing like breaking news when you're filming something that's going to go out tomorrow. But you've got to show that you're on top of the game here, and I'm going to leave Robert Jenrick where he is at the moment. I presume he's walking
somewhere between Conservative and Reform.
Well, I imagine he'll be walking from Parliament across to Millbank, which is where Reform HQ is. And I'm going to go completely off-piste, as it were, and talk about fish. And of course, what we found out yesterday, 7:43 by the way, there's a few clocks for you, for those of you who can't tell the time on the clock that's behind me over there. I'm actually getting better at this. Look, I've actually managed to point my finger in the right place. And there's no reflection in the clock today either. Have we taken the glass out? You changed it, moved it. Wow. Amazing, isn't it? And some of you noticed that we've got a new standard lamp, which is actually over there. Or actually further over there, there it is. We've got water here, we've got, and we're going to play in a couple more clips, because what ended up happening yesterday was there was a lot of confusion, because of course when Robert Jenrick was fired, Nigel Farage was actually in Scotland unveiling the new Scottish leader, who was Lord Offord, I think his name is, who is now moved out of the House of Lords in order to run for the Scottish Parliament. Nigel Farage then had to sort of hot-foot it back to London in order to have a conversation with Robert Jenrick. Nobody will ever really know whether they had planned to move this weekend and whether Jenrick was going to join Reform in any event over the course of the next 2 days. One of the stories that we heard was that he had been told to cancel a meeting or a rally that he was supposed to be holding because he was going to effectively defect to reform today, right? And then there was a lot of intrigue about a press conference that was held at Reform headquarters at Millbank, just across the road from the Houses of Parliament, around about 4:30, and that was when Robert Jenrick was in fact unveiled. So let's have a look at what then happened. Robert Jenrick talking about how he's joined Reform, why he's joined Reform, and why the Tories have broken Britain.
Shadow Cabinet debate. A conversation broke out. The question was put to the group, is Britain broken? I said instinctively, it's broken. Almost everyone said, it's not broken. And we were told, that is the party line. A few had a third position. It is broken, but we can't say so, because the Conservative Party broke it.
Coco says this, I really like Reem, keep her on more. Absolutely right. She was good. I don't agree with everything she says, but she's not a gaslighter like the one on Monday, says Tyranade. Reem Ibrahim absolutely set fire to the show this morning by having quite a big row with me about reform. She doesn't think that Tories joining reform is a good idea. She thinks that reform should be different. She thinks that there's no evidence that reform will be different. But she claims as well that she doesn't have a home politically. So it's not as if she's going, if I were you, I would vote for this. If I were you, I would vote for that. What she's actually saying is that she doesn't really see any difference between reform and the Tories and the Labour government. And I need to hear from you. You are a lovely girl, but need a lot more experience, says Derry's film. Her politics will probably change when she gets older. Everyone is awake now based on the flood of comments about Reem. I mean, she's absolutely set fire to the comment section on the YouTube scenario. We've got almost 10,000 people watching already this morning, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Couple of headlines for you. Starmer plots social media ban for under 16s. I don't know how he's going to make that happen. Middle East allies apparently convinced Donald Trump not to bomb Iran overnight. You can see there all the different variations of the front pages, all very much with that picture of Nigel Farage and Robert Jenrick. There's plenty of evidence and there's plenty of historical quotes, if you want. We'll play some for you over the course of the show. That, Jenrick didn't want to join Reform. Jenrick said he wasn't going to join Reform. Jenrick said there was going to be no pact with Reform. And of course, other people in Reform saying we don't want Robert Jenrick. The White House overnight has also said that Labour and this government and Keir Starmer is curbing democracy. We're also going to talk to Stephen Barrett very shortly, our favourite barrister, about the West Midlands Police, because they're now linked to Muslim extremists. Craig Guilford, of course, the Chief Constable, could resign today, we are told. Also, there's a very bizarre story in some of the papers saying they're looking for a dad's army. Your country needs you. If you're over 60, they're looking for old age pensioners to go and fight for Britain. For heaven's sake, we'll see how that all goes. Let's go back, though, to the main story of the day, which is, of course, all about Robert Jenrick, all about traitors, all about the Tory party and reform. What on earth is going on? Let's ask the man in the know. He is, of course, Stephen Barrett, barrister, man of mystery and destiny and all of that. Fantastic to see you, Stephen. Very good morning to you. I mean,
Good morning.
This story came out of the blue like a bullet yesterday. I mean, it shouldn't have, because I suppose we all knew that Robert Jenrick was one of those Tories who might, in fact, defect at some point or other. But what I find fascinating is the sort of the conversations around it all, as to whether hiring old Tories is good, whether, Nigel Farage can do it on his own without the Tories. What's your take on it all, having looked at it sort of 12 hours, 15 hours later?
Well, it feels very much like a self-inflicted wound by Kemi Badenoch. It didn't need to happen yesterday. She caused it all. And everybody just reacted. I think politically minded people were of the opinion in the interim that Reform wouldn't take Robert because she'd cast him out. She'd effectively... I think she'd actually acted unlawfully, but she denied him everything. She'd completely sacked him outright. And politically minded people were of the opinion that the clever thing to do would be to just leave him sort of dangling and his career destroyed. And what really struck me, because I watched the entire conference, and what really struck me was that Nigel sort of pointed this out and said, well, he's got no leverage now. And Nigel just said, but I'm an honourable man.
Right.
And so Nigel took him in, and Nigel embraced him. And I think that will actually echo far more than anything else. The Conservatives will destroy you, damn you, absolutely throw you to the wolves over nothing. I mean, we've seen no evidence at all that she actually acted in a justified way. And I believe taking his membership in particular was, I think, an unlawful act. So the Conservative Party will utterly destroy you and act unlawfully if it gets the slightest hint that it doesn't like you. And Nigel will act with honor and dignity and take you in. Those seem to be the overriding messages.
Right.
Well, if you're on the right, that echoes particularly strongly with you. And I don't see how anybody supports a thin-skinned, narcissistic Conservative Party. It just has no value. And you watched, I don't know if you saw, but on Twitter, you watched members of the Conservative Party act in a particularly vicious, bitter, just nasty way to Robert. 24 hours ago, he was on your team. 24 hours ago, he was the highest performing member of your team. And now you're sending nasty, mean-spirited little tweets about him. What? Because he's technically out of the camp. I mean, this is all very, to my mind, I think it's the death rattle of the Conservative Party.
Yes. And I mean, for Robert Jenrick also then to go in front of a reform, backdrop and say, actually, the Tories broke Britain, that's pretty damaging. And I think, while some people have said Kemi Badenoch shows that she was a strong woman by getting rid of him, I like your take, which is actually that she should have played it more cleverly. She should have been more sensible. But I think at the end of the day, as you say, the death rattle is there. The Tories are a sort of busted flush, aren't they?
The Conservative Party doesn't seem to understand that in a democracy you need voters and you need to be popular and you need to get on with people. It seems to think that it can just snowplow through and you demand authority, demand votes.
Yeah.
It seems to almost act as though it has some inane God-given right to exist.
Yes.
And it is the oldest political party in the world, but that doesn't mean it can't die. And that they don't seem to have grasped that. But if you don't have voters, I think, to be honest, Mike, I think that although yesterday was incredibly dramatic and I think has really driven it home to everybody, I think the death rattle of the Conservative Party began when its members started using the term populist as some sort of insult.
Yes.
If you're in a democracy, you need to be popular. It's not an insult. It's how you win. It's how the entire system works. You're not an autocrat. You're not a God-given monarch. You only exist if you have the support of the people. And the minute you start using populist as an insult, you've lost the plot. And the Conservative Party, I think, has lost the plot.
And they totally have, because let's not forget, the Conservative Party lost the plot many moons ago when Boris Johnson was hailed as the great new saviour of sort of the centre-right. And it turned out that not only was he massively pro-immigration, not only was he massively pro-net zero, and not only was he massively pro, some libertarian anti-conservative policies, but basically that he was more than happy to sell Britain down the river to whoever was willing to pay money for whatever it was that he was selling. And I heard a Conservative pollster talking this morning on the way into work, describing Robert Jenrick as a man who he said he didn't understand why he'd suddenly gone to this foaming of the mouth right-wingery. And you think, if you actually look at Robert Jenrick and that's how you see him, there's something wrong with you, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, you really can't describe. I don't think you could watch that press conference yesterday with Nigel and Robert, both of whom gave very impressive speeches, as foaming at the mouth about anything.
No.
They were staid, measured, rational. They obviously care about the country. And what we're seeing is the conflict between the establishment narrative, which is increasingly just disconnected from reality and will just start to feel weird to all of us who are normal people.
Yeah.
You know, it just isn't. It's like these people who go on Twitter and try and argue that London's the best it's ever been, whilst it's covered in graffiti, has people sleeping in the. We literally see that. We can see it. Okay, you know.
Right.
But this disconnect between the elite, who have to maintain some sort of perverse version of Britain that exists only in their head. And to call Robert Jenrick frothing at the mouth, I mean, that's just nonsense. I mean, it's just
and what do you make of the other sort of part of the right, I suppose, which is fragmenting, if you like, those who wanted reform to be the answer, but who now say Nigel Farage is not the answer. You know, Elon Musk doesn't think he can run the country. You know, Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe are the people that we should be placing our faith in. I mean, I slightly worry that that is a bit of an unrealistic view of the real world, because reform surely are the only opportunity, the only alternative government that we can have in this country. I mean, Rupert Lowe might be a very fine individual. People might love what he does and love what he says, but he can't run anything on his own. And the same goes for Advance, doesn't it?
I think that's realistic. I think if the left has a failure, it's the fact that they are unwaveringly loyal. So if I were on the left, and I think and you and I both have friends on the left who we admire and like, and I think that they are too loyal. So I think they've not acted to get rid of Keir Starmer when they should have done, because the left is too loyal. And if the right has a failure, it's the opposite. It's that they tend to fracture and fragment and form and dissect and find any reason to not get on with each other, which is why people who are on the right often call for uniting the right, because it's so easy to fall out with each other over nothing.
Right.
And it does feel as though, I mean, I particularly, you know, I mean, I don't want to comment about either individual because it just won't make anything better. But the fact that the right falls out with itself over nothing is deeply unhelpful, I think. This is the death rattle of the Conservative Party. I strongly suspect it won't live through this. It might limp on till the May elections, but at 18% in the polls and this, I just don't see it living.
No, I think not. Let's move on to a couple of other subjects just before we let you go, Stephen. Dad's Army 2026. This is a good one. Veterans aged up to 65 are going to be recalled to serve in the armed forces. That means me, effectively. I don't know what you feel about me protecting your sovereign right to live in this country, but it says here that former soldiers approaching a pensionable age are to be recalled in a desperate bid to prepare Britain for possible war against Russia. I mean, you do wonder where this stuff comes from, right?
I mean, I have a personal suspicion that the Prime Minister is going through a breakdown. Just generally, Mike, I don't see how Keir Starmer. I mean, and this is the nonsense about Greenland, and all of this. It just seems like confected outrage. So I strongly suspect Number 10 has simply leaked that nonsense suggestion. Obviously, men aged 65. I mean, look, if it's necessary, if it's desperate, you know, we all do what we have to. But we're not at war with Russia. We're not very likely to go to war with Russia. This is all, I think, much more about Keir Starmer sort of vaguely controlling some sense of being Prime Minister. He needs to go. Labour should have got rid of him long ago if they had any sense, and if they wanted to survive, they would do that, and they would try to come up with a credible plan for governing the country, which I still think they've got time to do. They've got a majority in Parliament. That's what they should do after the next general election. Terribly sorry, Labour Party, but you're not going to have a majority in Parliament. You're very lucky to have any MPs at all, and we're going to see whatever we're going to see as the new attempt to fix Britain. Britain is not going to be fixed by giving guns to 65-year-old to pensioner men and asking them to fight. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, unless it's some sort of new reality television program, I don't see what value there is in this at all.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Finally, let's finish up with the West Midlands police situation, because a lot of the papers this morning saying that Craig Guildford may resign today. I mean, he should have gone, to be honest, before the end of last year, but he's kind of hung on for grim life. What's even more extraordinary is the guy who is the Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands, a bloke by the name of Simon Foster, who's a Corbynite, by the way. It turns out, it's a piece of the Telegraph today saying that he basically held a Zoom call hosted, or he attended a Zoom call hosted by Muslim Engagement and Development, a group that has been criticised for working alongside extremists. This was sometime before this Maccabi Tel Aviv decision was made. He's the only person that can sack Craig Guildford, and he clearly is not of a mind to do so, because it would seem to me to suggest that he has been a very, very strong supporter of the Muslim community and is very anti-Israeli.
Well, he's not the only person who can sack the Chief Constable of the West Midlands Police, because if in a sane and sensible country, we would simply man up, our Parliament would use the supreme authority and power it has, and our ministers who command a majority in Parliament would use their power and authority and get rid of him. And that could have happened. One of the many failures of Kemi Badenoch is to have taken all the oxygen out of this yesterday. You know, we basically wasted yesterday when we should have been fighting the fact that we have a racist in charge of West Midlands Police who takes racist positions, and that's what it is, and that's the word that you have to use, because that's what's going on, and we cannot allow racism against Jews to become acceptable just because we feel it's, you know, somehow uncomfortable to say the R word whenever they're involved. It is the R word. It is racism. And Craig Guildford clearly needs to be taken out. Quite frankly, Mike, he needs to have his pension taken away, let alone just be sacked. I mean, right. the man clinging on to office, he's utterly, and I feel particularly emotional about this because, you know, I used to live in the West Midlands. And the police officers I grew up with were deeply respectable people. You know, that this is not a respectable police officer. That this is, whatever this is, this form of a human being, it's not honourable in any sense. He has no connection to honour or duty. He's entirely about self-service. And the police and crime commissioner, well, he is an absolute joke himself. Personally, Mike, I'd just get rid of police and crime commissioners. I don't see what they've added. You know, to be perfectly honest, what is going on? And every time we try and change this country to make it slightly like another country, I think we make it worse. I think we need to start respecting the fact that we actually were, and I hope will one day again be, a really good, beautiful and brilliant country, and we should respect how we do things, honor our ancestors, not start thinking that they're all thick as two short planks and that actually they knew what they were on about and how to create a decent country. Because frankly, in the last 30 years, every improvement that anybody's tried to make has just made everything worse.
Yes, it totally has. Stephen, brilliant to see you. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Words of common sense literally pouring from his lips. Fantastic man. Stephen Barrett there, our favourite barrister. We'll be talking to him again very soon. Lots of you, pardon me, have got lots of interesting things to say. I'll still vote Reform UK and encourage all to do so. There's never a perfect move on the political game board, but there's always a best move, says Jammy Horse. Whatever it takes to get rid of Starmer, who is a complete and utter anchor, I think is the word we're looking for, says Barry Island. Lots of you saying nothing will last forever, not even the Tories. We need everyone we can who loves this country to help vote this government out, says Fizzy Red. Hopefully Dominic Cummings will be the next signing for reform. He is a brilliant strategist, says Carol, but not everybody agrees with that. So many of you have got much to say about the appointment of Robert Jenrick, the welcoming of Robert Jenrick into the Reform Party. I, for one, if you want my opinion, well, you're going to get it anyway, right? I think it's an absolutely brilliant move. I don't think there is any way that this could be a negative for Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage and Reform are now stronger this morning than they were this time yesterday because they now have Robert Jenrick on side. Now, you can say that he's not a trustworthy individual, that he's changed his mind, that he voted to stay in the European Union, that he was not, in fact, in any way against the lockdowns, that he had, you know, various different views in the past that you don't like. That's not the point. The point is surely this: if you want to get rid of this crappy Labour government and you want reforms to be the alternative, then you need people like Robert Jenrick to have in your cabinet. You need people like Nazim Zahawi in your cabinet. You might not like it, but it's practicalities that matter at this point. And I'll take your views, of course, on it. One more one for you, if you want something to laugh about this morning. If apparently you're still single when you reach the age of 30, it might be because you're too clever. So if you're stupid, you've got more chance of getting a date. Sounds like that's true. Coming up, it's time for Edward Hughes with the news.
Good morning. Here's a summary of today's UK news headlines, Friday 16th January 2026. I'm Edward Hughes. The big story remains the bitterly cold snap gripping much of the country, with ongoing yellow warnings for snow and ice across northern England, Scotland and parts of Wales. I'm glad that's not warnings of yellow snow. Frank Zappa. Elsewhere, the fallout continues from Robert Jenrick's dramatic defection to Reform UK, with Kemi Badenoch having sacked him amid Tory infighting. And tech regulators are watching closely as X halts certain Grok AI image features following backlash over deepfakes. I'm sure I once saw this deepfake video about a newsreader who was doing something nasty with photos, but he was let off and still kept his massive pension. I mean, who would believe that to be true? Oh, and by the way, I hear Mrs. Hughes was on the show yesterday. I do hope she didn't embarrass me. Likes a beverage, that one, but I love her. That's your quick roundup. Stay warm and keep an eye on those weather updates. Later, Tigers.
Later, indeed. 6 minutes past 8. Here we are. It's Friday. We've managed to get all the way to Friday. It's the 16th of January. Yesterday, absolutely cataclysmic events going on. Robert Jenrick defecting from the Tory party to Reform after being kicked out of the party, literally, by Kemi Badenoch. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking to Orla Minahane, who is, of course, one of the pink ladies from Epping over in Essex, where there has been all sorts of controversies over the course of the last few months. She's not that happy that Robert Jenrick has been joining Reform, so we'll find out from her exactly what she thinks about that. We've got a couple of super chats coming in as well, which we'll get to you when we can. We'll get to. They've got a bloody cheek, Mike. Says Geordie Mark, talking about signing up 65-year-olds. Call up 65-year-olds. They've treated people like crap in this country for decades. They start the wars. They can bloody well fight them themselves. Well, indeed. I wonder if they'll take the homeless veterans they've been ignoring while paying the third world's homeless, says Woolrab. And then talking about Reform and Rupert Lowe. Rupert has massive support. Many Reform members will jump ship if he starts a party. Well, again, I think you have to worry about whether or not there is going to be enough bandwidth, if you like, from people like Advance UK with Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe. You know, many people have got a great deal of admiration for Rupert Lowe, and many people should have admiration for him. But however, the problem is, right, that he's one man and he doesn't have a party and he doesn't have any likelihood of getting a party. So, you know, it's unrealistic to think of him as the answer to getting rid of the Labour government. The only realistic answer for getting rid of the Labour government is Reform. And, you know, those people who are in Reform have to figure it out for themselves. I think that's very, very clear. This from, where are we? Will the 65-year-old soldiers be called Dad's Army? Says G4. What a ridiculous idea. Well, exactly right. We heard from Stephen Barrett earlier. We're going to hear from Tim Montgomery in this hour as well, who's a former Conservative, of course, now Reform. We'll find out from him what he makes of the appointment of Robert Jenrick to now the Reform Party. Also, coming up on the after show today, we're going to be celebrating. We've got Chris Walkie coming in with some champagne and some fizz to help us celebrate with the first 2 weeks of our broadcasting careers here at the Mike Graham Show, where we banged through 4 million views already, 124,000 subscribers on YouTube. Do please go to the YouTube channel, like it and subscribe to it. And here's a little taster of what we've got coming up for you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. So, we finally got it off the ground. We've been going for a little while now, and we're all delighted with the reception, with the audience, and with what you're saying to us about how much you're enjoying the Mike Graham Show every single weekday morning from 7 until 9 a.m. We've got Plank of the Day, which we bring in, of course. We're doing polls every day now as well. We've also got Pedant of the Day, which is awarded to anybody who comes in and gives us a bit of criticism for something they don't like, whether it's one of the bricks is out of place, whether they don't like the colour of the sign behind me, whether the Union Jack's a bit flaccid. You know, you never know what the complaint is, but you could be a winner of pedant of the week. Also, of course, we've got Heron of the Day as well, which is when you send in your lovely, beautiful pictures of those amazing birds, the herons, which bring us so much good luck and offer us so much goodwill. And don't forget, of course, as well, that we're still doing Plank of the Week. That goes out every Friday at 7 o'clock in the evening. And of course, every single weekday, we're doing a Substack after show for people who subscribe to our Substack. So if you want to stream the breakfast show live on Substack without any ads, you can do that, sign up and subscribe. You can also watch it on YouTube, of course, with ads or without ads on YouTube Premium. And the after show every single day also goes out on YouTube later on in the week. So we've got an awful lot going on. We obviously always want to hear from you, whatever your criticisms are, whatever your encouragements are, anything you think we should be doing that we're not doing. We're working on getting voice notes incorporated into the show. We're working on getting calls incorporated into the show as well. We're building a station here. We're building a channel which we hope you will enjoy for a very long time. And I'm delighted that you're on the journey with us. We are having a fabulous time working as independent producers of media. And who knows where it all goes, because what we can tell you is that just last month, YouTube overtook the BBC as the biggest source of news and information for the people of Great Britain. And that's what we're part of. So we'll see you soon. Have a great day. This is The Mike Graham Show. And this is the Mike Graham Show. Welcome. It is what now? 10 minutes past 8. We're here every single weekday morning from 7 to 9. There's the multitude of clocks there. You know, lots of you have got things to say. We've got a Union Jack behind us now. We've got a new standard lamp. We've got the Plank of the Week trophy. Everything's going on here. We've been going for 2 weeks and it's literally been brilliant. So thank you to all of you. We burst through 4 million views just yesterday on the channel, and we've got 124,000 subscribers. We want to build that. So do go there and like it and subscribe to it, please, as well. And also, this is the only show in town where you get Heron of the Day. Right, let's have a look. I think we've got this one from Janice Graham, who said there's a heron, regular stretch of the Shropshire Union Canal in Chester. There you go. That's fantastic, isn't it? There he is. Lovely. Now, we've got time for the next guest, who is the wonderful, the beautiful Orla Minahan from Essex.
I'm not
Very
sure
good morning.
Beautiful, but I'll take it.
This time of the morning, listen, I think you're looking pretty damn good. You know, it's not easy out there. You know, I've had to put makeup on to make myself look this bad. Listen, great to see you.
Thank you.
Huge day yesterday for reform.
Yeah.
I mean, I was saying to Pooch earlier, you know, we were filming Plank of the Week actually, and suddenly the news broke that Robert Jenrick had been fired, and it was like, oh my God, you know, that was obviously a huge thing. You've been tweeting though that you're not that happy about welcoming somebody like Jenrick into the party. Tell us why.
Look, my view is very clear, and as you know, I'm very, very passionate about this subject. I don't think that first of all, any government in any country on this planet, their most important thing that they have to do is protect their borders and protect their women and children. Well, not even their women, but protect their children, their citizens.
Right.
Now, consecutive governments, Conservative and Labour, over the last 25, 30 years, have failed on those two things. Massively. Yeah. We've seen horrific grooming gang, rape gang scandal. And now we've seen the influx of thousands and thousands of illegal migrant men who are coming into this country, sexually assaulting, raping, and in some cases murdering young women. Now, for me, that is an absolute scandal of the highest order. The fact is that Rupert Jenrick and these other guys who are coming over from Conservative were in government when this was happening, okay? So now I'm not saying that Rupert was, you know, it was down to him. Of course it wasn't down to him. It was a multitude of things. Yeah. But ultimately he was the immigration minister in 2023 when this migrant crisis exploded and hotels across this country were opened. Yeah. He was the catalyst for the hotels. Now,
and he's on record saying that.
And he's on record, and he's, you know, all I've said is, yes, I understand that he is a very prominent figure, and yes, it's probably a good scoop for Reform, and Reform are trying to build a government. But my concern is, why do we suddenly think that these MPs who have been complicit in what has happened in this country are suddenly going to come to Reform and going to change? Yeah. You know, that's well, my point.
I mean, in Robert Jenrick's defence, and I'm not defending him because I want to. It's just that I would say, in order to sort of just be try and be fair, he would say that he resigned as immigration minister when he realised that the immigration policy that the Tories were pursuing was not working and was not right. You know, and I also, as an overall kind of arching view of politicians, is I will say to people, you know, let's not put too much faith in them. Let's not expect them to be decent people. Let's not expect them to be honourable. Let's not expect them to be truthful. Let's see them for what they are, and let's use them for what we can get out of them. Why don't we do that as well? Because while I totally accept your point of view, and I think it's a very good point to make, that there are people who would worry about somebody like Jenrick, who had different views before and who's now making out maybe his views have changed. But I think if you're going to be pragmatic about trying to get this useless, hopeless Labour government out of power, you need to kind of bring people like him in because of the experience that he's got, perhaps.
I understand that. My view would be also, and I absolutely agree with that. Since I joined Reform, which was way before I got involved with the Pink Ladies scenario and movement, I have met the most talented, fantastic people along the way, people that have never been in politics before, that have joined Reform for the right reasons. They've got no background in politics. They've got a completely clean slate. They're business people, they're intellectuals, they're educated, worldly people who have come into Reform because they want to change this country. Now, what worries me is, are those people going to be sidelined for people like Jenrick and people like, other MPs that are coming over from and defecting from other parties? Are they going to be sidelined for them? That concerns me because ultimately we need change in this country, Mike. We know that. We drastically need change on every level. And is that change going to be delivered by the people that put us in this position in the first place? That's what concerns me.
I mean, I guess the question as well is for somebody like yourself, who is one of those people you just described, who's got involved in politics and who's now with Reform. I mean, I guess a big question is how is it for you working inside the machine, if you like? How easy is it for you to get access to Nigel Farage or to get access to the people that make decisions? Are people like yourself being sidelined, as you say, for the sort of the superstars coming in from Westminster?
I think that the ones that are coming from Westminster that are already MPs are higher up the echelon, so that they're slightly out of our. But I'm very involved with grassroots. I'm standing in Epping Forest as a candidate, but I'm also chairing Waltham Forest, which is in East London, which is a very diverse borough. So it's hard work. It's very hard work. And there are so many dedicated people that are literally dedicating their lives to this movement and to the May elections. So I guess my view is, yes, bring in people that have got knowledge of how it works, how democracy works in this country, or is supposed to work in this country, or doesn't work, and having that experience. But please, my only advice that I would give Nigel and Zia, and I'm just a woman, in Essex, who's minded their own business, who's got involved. But my view would be, do not sideline the talent that is in Reform, that is really dedicated to making this country different and better for people that have come in who are professional politicians. Jenrick stood up yesterday. Yes, he did a great speech. But he's a politician. He's trained to give great speeches when the time comes. He's also looking at losing his seat. So one has to question whether those motives and those reasons are right. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and it's a perfectly valid point. And I'm very much an optimist in everything. I mean, I have to be, coming from where I come from. I always have to think things are going to get better. I'd like to think that there is a sort of happy medium that will be found. And I totally accept. I mean, I know lots of people who are unhappy with the way Nigel Farage has been running Reform. There's lots of councillors who have sort of now signed up and then left because they didn't like the way that their local sort of council campaigns were being run, and I get that, but I also understand that we've got it here. I mean, when we started this show a week ago Monday, the number of criticisms that came in, it's too dark, it's too light, the clock's wrong, the sign's the wrong colour. People love complaining in this country. Of course they do, yeah. And I think sometimes you just have to take a step back and go, look, what do we want to do here? What we want to do is get rid of this hopeless, useless Labour government, this crazed, megalomaniac Keir Starmer, authoritarian who would rather lock you up for saying something nasty than going after, illegal migrants who want to rape your children. And if that is the end result, then we all have to kind of get together and go, okay, you might have to bite your tongue a little bit sometimes. You might, it's like a family, isn't it? You argue with your family. You're never going to get on all the time.
No.
With your husband or your kids or your parents, and never forget what the actual end game is.
I agree with you.
And let's not destroy what's what's there just because you don't like some of it.
No, absolutely. I have the utmost respect for Nigel. He has always stuck by his guns, and he has been, he has been the underdog for years and years and years, and he's never given up. So there has to, I've got massive respect for that.
And his whole life, and I was talking to somebody last night about this who knows him well, his whole life has been turned around. He can't go out now without bodyguards. He can't go to the cinema. He can't go to a restaurant. He can't walk down the street because his life's literally in danger.
Yeah, and he's done that because he wants for the greater good, and I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I did that tweet yesterday because I felt that in the, taking into consideration that we are a free speech country, should be, supposed to be.
Well, used to be.
You have to stand by, you have to have integrity. And for me, my integrity has to lie within the fact that I stand every week, I send emails and letters to the Home Secretary demanding that they meet the pink ladies and women in this country to tell us what their plan is for this migrant crisis and how they're going to protect our children. I therefore had to address the fact that a man that was in charge of migration or immigration has now been appointed to the party that I'm currently dedicating my life to. That was my intention. My intention is not to cause divide. My intention is not to stir the pot.
Right.
I'm still absolutely on board with reform and will fight with every tooth and nail that I can.
It's a two-way street as well, because reform and the people that run it also have to understand that people like you might have a disagreement with them.
Absolutely.
And that shouldn't mean that you're somehow ostracised and you're not allowed to talk about it.
It's not a cult. At the end of the day, we're all entitled to our opinion. And I would hope that the powers that be look and think, well, at least she's got a bit of integrity and a bit of backbone.
Exactly. You've got a lot more backbone than Keir Starmer's got, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Last time we spoke, you said, obviously the weather. I mean, this week has been the worst weather I think I can ever remember in my life.
That's why I've got this hair.
I mean, I've thrown away more shoes this week than I've ever, when I realised they were a bit leaky. What's going on with the pink ladies? Anything coming up on the horizon?
Yes, so we sent a letter, as we spoke last week, to Shabana Mahmood. She has not responded or acknowledged the letter. The letter has now gone back again, just in case it's slipped into junk mail. And we will be sending another revised letter next week. And that letter has said to her, please meet with us. We are representing the mothers of this country. We want to know what the plan is. They haven't addressed the rape gang scandal still.
Right.
That hasn't. They haven't.
We're
still waiting for that,
right.
Which is an outrage. We are not going to be silenced and pushed aside just because they don't want to answer the questions or they haven't got plans. So we've asked for that. If that doesn't happen, then we will be taking a protest to Westminster, to the Home Office. And all I want, and all Maria Botel wants, who I know you had on Wednesday, is a response. Yes, we've seen your letter. Yes, we acknowledge there's a problem. Yes, we will meet you. Silence is not an option.
No.
Because we will not tolerate that. We also, next on the 30th of January, sorry, I have 6 months ahead, 30th of January, we are going to Coventry, where Rhiannon White's court case is being heard. The man who stabbed her 30 times with a screwdriver and has left a 6-year-old child orphaned. We're going there to that it's not a protest, it's just a showing of solidarity to her parents. And then we are planning other protests across the UK as we go on throughout the year. It's difficult, the weather's awful, it's dark, but these ladies, Mike, are a force to be reckoned with. They will come out, rain or snow. Some of them, we've got a lady who's 82, we've got one who's 89 in Crowborough. Every week they are there because it means so much to them.
Amazing. Fantastic work that you're doing, and thank you so much for doing it. All Minahan there.
Thank you.
She's going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2026, as you would expect, and she's not going away. So don't tell her to go away because she won't like it, and you might get smacked in the mouth. Anyway, listen, this is the Mike Graham Show. We've got a nomination for Pedant of the Day. This is from Charlotte, who sent it in. Not meaning to be pedantic, says Warisan, but I noticed an ugly fingerprint on your YouTube plaque when you did your excellent studio tour. It is still there. Can somebody maybe clean it off? Many thanks. I mean, are you serious? I mean, that's our YouTube plaque for getting 100,000 subscribers, right, in the first 2 weeks of our existence. We'll check it out. I'll get somebody to clean it, because I've got thousands of people around with cloths just to go around the office and, there's a fingerprint there, for heaven's sake. Morning, Mike, says Leatherwoods. Great show. Do you have a ghost in the studio as the Union Jack flag behind you keeps moving? Well, yeah, there's a bit of wind blowing through here. That's why, It's actually an automatic Union Jack. I bought it and it's got its own motor and it moves independently whenever I press a button under the table like that. See that? It's amazing, isn't it? Coming up, Tim Montgomery is going to be joining us. We'll get his view on Robert Jenrick joining Reform and also, of course, many, many more of your messages. This, of course, is the Mike Graham Show.
Don't you forget now to like and subscribe and all the socials out there, especially there's a YouTube flannel.
So, a couple of messages for you. In honour of the new old army, Mike, needs another clock, maybe an hourglass. Where's the fresh blood coming from, says Gareth. New people are better than old snakes, says Sano. And well explained, says Phil to me about, he said, we need experience within Reform. Penny for your thoughts says, I was a Reform member since January 2023, before Nigel got involved. I'm one of the first members and I've now cancelled my membership. Well, you know, it's interesting. Here's a super chat from Mr. Woodward, UK. Those joining Reform UK must sign up to the Reform policies or they are out. These are the Reform rules. Well, look, you know, political parties work in a particular way. Political parties only work if they've got a leader who leads from the top and the top-down decisions that are made filter down into the way that the party is run. I'm not saying that you should have to be a cult. I'm not saying that you should have to do everything that you're told. However, the bottom line is that if Reform are going to take over the next government and if Reform are going to beat Labour into submission, then I think everybody has to stop arguing with each other. It's what it says on the front page of the Daily Mail today. The Pink Ladies are inspiring, says Elaine. What a woman, a real fighter. The front page of the Daily Mail today says, look, stop fighting each other and end the Labour nightmare. Let's talk to Tim Montgomery, who I think is here with us now, former founder of, he's not here yet, sorry, former founder of Conservative Home and a man who has got plenty to say about why he defected himself from the Conservative Party to Reform. But before we get him on, have a look around, you know, check out that Union Jack and White's movie behind me. But this is what we filmed a little bit earlier. In the whole studio, you can get to see what everything is going on. Have a look. Good afternoon. Welcome to the studio. I've just been talking to Edward Hughes to make sure that he's behaving himself and he's not doing anything that he shouldn't be doing. This is, of course, the home of common sense. And when you talk about the home of common sense, this is the real home of common sense. And this is where it all happens. This is the sort of the brains of the whole operation. This is where Pooch sits, where he's got all this incredible equipment. And look at this. These are all the different scenes that we can use. Preview, program, on, off, stop, go. If I press that, you can change the ident of the show. If you press that, you can get a bit closer to the plank. If you press that, you get a completely different view as well. We've got some great microphones. We've got more microphones coming in, actually. There's the clock, and one of the things that so many of you love about the show. And there's another clock over there, by the way, and let's not forget that one. All of these little things are fascinating to me. I don't really know too much about them, but they all work brilliantly, and we are using them every day, in every single way. Now, come back over this way because I want to show you this. This is amazing, right? This is our sort of private club scene. This is where we're going to be sitting. When I'm sitting here, I'll be interviewing somebody sitting there, and this will be the background. And it looks rather like one of those expensive gentlemen's clubs, doesn't it? Which is rather good. Over here, we've brought some artwork with us because we thought we should. This is actually a painting done by my father of a house I once lived in Swiss Cottage in North London. And this was my farewell page one, which is what we used to do when I got fired again from the Daily Express, and that was a while ago. Over here, we've got a picture of the Flatiron Building, which is very close to where I used to work when I lived in New York. And then there's a portrait of me, which was very kindly done by one of the viewers from my old show at Talk. Over here, we've got plenty of product, I suppose you might say. This is the sofa, a couple of spare ties, some moisturiser, some lip balm, a little bit of perfume. I bought that from my daughter. Some hairspray. I don't use that much, I have to say. I don't, as you can see. A brush, some headache pills, just in case I'm not feeling very well. Got some hair gel, just in case you need it. We got sugar, we got coffee, we got bananas. In fact, I'm going to have one of these. Here's a movable camera here. Over here, we've got a picture of Ziggy. Some people think it should be in shot. I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. We may have to move it. And over here, another front page that was done for me when I was over at News UK. Over here, this is the Christmas decoration that we had. which I'm being told we should now get rid of. But I don't know, I quite like it. You know, it's Christmas every day here at the Mike Graham Show. And here's the plank for Plank of the Week, which is going to be going out every single week on a Friday at 7 o'clock. Here's the clock, which has been a source of great amusement for an awful lot of people. A nice little side light there. The clock is not necessarily got the right time on it, but we'll see if we can fix that. Over here, we've got some soundproofing, we've got some more lights, and we've got, of course, the great Mike Graham Show YouTube silver plaque, which was presented to us for passing 100,000 subscribers in about as quick a time as anybody's ever done it. I think it was within about 2 weeks of starting off. This is where I sit, and this, of course, is my microphone. Here we've got a little man bag full of things that I may have to put on my face. Got my iPad here, got a glass of water. This is the screen that I use to look at to see what's going on. That's the camera that I look at to see whether I'm doing the right thing. Boots will talk to me in my earpiece, which I sometimes put in there. And so this is our new home, and we're very delighted with it. Pooch put it together literally in record time. 2 weeks ago, there was none of it here. And we've been going 3 days now. We're delighted with everything that you're doing. We couldn't be happier. Keep your thoughts and keep your ideas coming, and anything that you want that we're not doing, just let us know. And remember, whatever you do, no matter how much of it there is going on out there, do not be a plank. Oh, I'm wearing the same tie as I was wearing in that. Look at that, amazing. By the way, if you are one of those pedants who spotted anything that was maybe wrong or something that you might want to correct, just do let us know. The latest bit of pedantry is there's apparently a fingerprint on our YouTube plaque, which we promised to try and get rid of. Also, here's a question for you. We're going to do this every time we play the studio tour. What is the colour behind the portrait of me? That's the studio butler, by the way, just going to sort out the fingerprint. Very, 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 very well done. Nicely done. Thank you very much indeed. Oliver's his name. He doesn't come in very often, but he's in on a Friday to help us clean up any fingerprints that might be a big problem for you. So if you spot anything else, let us know. So here's the question for you, and you can answer it on the YouTube chat. Tell us exactly what the colour is of the portrait, the background portrait of me that you might have seen in that particular endeavour. A little bit of a message that just came up there. I didn't read it. Can you get it? Can we get that up again, Pooch, so I can read it? It looked like quite a long message. Not quite sure. Oh, here we go. Oh, yes, fingerprints all over one side of the YouTube plaque. So pedant of the day is actually a fair point. So much fun. Love the way this show is now. It's so interactive. The clock has yellow hands, so you can see them from a distance or in the dark, says Nefertari. Yeah, I didn't notice the clock had yellow hands, to be honest. You should sell shirts with "It's Mike's Time" with your famous clock on it. That's a good idea, actually. That's from United Kingdom of Five Eyes. Also, lots of you. Morning, Mike. Pooch, I'd rather Ed be a human. H-U-G-H, human, I like it. Edward's lips aren't moving, says Kim. Well, we don't want Edward's lips moving, because when he moves his lips, that's when things really start going wrong. And my dog was called Pooch, says Penny. R.I.P. Sorry about that. Let's not forget about the bin man walking his dog. Yeah, well, that was the guy who was stabbed to death. Your clock is more honest than Starmer, Mike. It's only wrong twice a day. The old ones are the best ones. Yeah, absolutely right. We're going to be talking to Tim Montgomery coming up very shortly. But before we do that, let's have a look at some of the clips from yesterday's cataclysmic event, which was Robert Jenrick, of course, being fired, first of all, by Kemi Badenoch, and then being hired by Nigel Farage. Here's what Robert Jenrick had to say after he admitted that he was joining Reform about Broken Britain.
Shadow Cabinet debate. A conversation broke out. The question was put to the group, is Britain broken? I said instinctively, it's broken. Almost everyone said, it's not broken. And we were told, that is the party line. A few had a third position. It is broken, but we can't say so, because the Conservative Party broke it.
And there it is, Robert Jenrick saying, Britain is indeed broken, and it's the Conservative Party that broke it, right? You can't be clearer than that. There's the time check for you, 8:33. Let's have a look at what Jacob Rees-Mogg had to say. He was basically asked if he was going to be the next man to join Reform UK. Have a look.
Hello, you're singing in the rain.
We are singing in the rain.
You're doing your Rishi Sunak.
I'm quite good at that, aren't I? Jacob Rees-Mogg, yes. Are you next? Or are you off to Reform UK?
No, I'm off home, actually. and broadcasting on GB News later this evening. But no, I'm still a Tory. I'm supporting the Tory party. Very interested about what's happened today and look forward to your commentary at 10:30 or so. Indeed, I was invited on. I'm sorry I can't join you, but I head to Somerset. So.
Are you saddened that Robert Jenrick has left your party?
Oh, of course.
Or been ejected?
I think very highly of Robert. I think he is a loss to the party, and it's very important that we see the evidence for why he's gone. And the gossip is a speech was left on a photocopier. Let's see the speech.
Can you understand why it looks like he feels that his future is in Reform UK? Can you understand that?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. He hasn't said anything yet so far.
He hasn't said anything, no.
So we'll have to wait and see what he says. I mean, he may decide to sit as an independent. I doubt it, but we have to wait upon his version of events.
And what do you think of how Kemi Badenoch handled this? Some are saying pretty decisive.
Well, it's either a very good decision or a very bad decision. It's a very good decision if the evidence is there, and she's been decisive and done something bold. If the evidence isn't there, then it looks as if she's nobbled a potential contender for the leadership. There's no middle way in this decision, and those are either the best or worst political decisions. But I'm in favour of politicians who make their minds up.
I mean, is it a smack of the Iron Lady, do you think?
Margaret Thatcher wasn't somebody who fired people in opposition. She tried to bring people together in opposition, so it's not following the 75 to 79 pattern of Margaret Thatcher.
So do you think Kemi Badenoch should have been a bit more inclusive? If there was his evidence, she should have sat down with Robert?
No. I think if the evidence is there, what she did was her only choice, as she said in her Twitter comments.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, thank you.
Pleasure. If you want to dry out, pop round. I've got a nice warm house, and you can get towels, all of you.
It has been the most ghastly weather this week, hasn't it? I mean, everybody's been soaking wet. I'm beginning on the tube, and it has that kind of damp smell about it, where everybody's clothes are soaking wet. The background on your picture is a reddish colour, says Sprograt. Very correct, well said. The picture background is either beige or shell pink, says Kaz. No, you got that one wrong, sorry. One here from Sometimes I Wonder Why. She sighs when the gorgeous man with a smile walks by. I don't know who says that and what does it mean. A lot of you saying, you know, the thing about reform is that they need experience. The thing about reform is that they need to bring in people who know how to run a government. Whether you don't like the way they ran it in the past is not really the issue. But let's talk now to Tim Montgomery, former founder, of course, of Conservative Home, one of the most influential websites of all time on the right side of politics. He's now a member of Reform himself. Tim, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thanks so much for joining us. I mean, a cataclysmic day yesterday. I think despite the fact that many of us suspected that maybe Robert Jenrick would move over to Reform, when the news came out that Kemi Badenoch had fired him and banished him from the Conservative Party, I think we were all a bit shocked, really.
Yeah, it was a dramatic day. And since I've been on your show last week, I've been suffering from man flu, Mike.
Oh, dear.
And so yesterday I spent most of the day in bed sort of fielding phone calls. But it was dramatic, and I think Kemi Badenoch, just listening to your clip there of Jacob Rees-Mogg, Kemi Badenoch handled the situation quite well, given what she knew. And then, of course, Reform weren't expecting to have to announce Robert Jenrick so soon. I generally don't think he'd fully decided what his future was until that happened. But I think in the long run, I think this is good for Reform. And you just mentioned it, really. The big criticism of Reform is that it looks like a one-man band. It's all Nigel Farage. When you have someone who up until very recently was the heir apparent to lead the Conservative Party, it's harder and harder to describe Reform as a one-man band. Nigel Farage is beginning to build the team that could be Britain's next government, and that's the significance, I think, of yesterday.
Yes, and I mean, I think I've been saying this all morning. It's difficult when you're forming a new party, when you're aiming to get into government, when you've got all sorts of disparate, interests coming in. You've got people who are disenchanted with Nigel Farage. You've got people who prefer Ben Habib. You've got people who like Rupert Lowe. Yep. The front page of the Daily Mail today says, "Stop fighting each other and end the Labour nightmare." I guess that's easier said than done, isn't it?
Well, that's what we all want to do. I am genuinely shocked at how bad this Labour government is. I think you are as well, Mike. Yeah. And we all, those of us on the sort of what you might call the right of politics, we have to stop Labour coming back into power in any form. It's just how you do that. And it's the idea of a Tory Reform Pact. I know it appeals to some people, but Reform are fighting elections this coming May in Scotland, in Wales, in parts of north of England, where if Reform had a pact with the Tories, people would not vote Reform. There's certain people who've just turned off the Tories because they feel so let down by them in the past. Any party that associates with the Tories will lose. And so a pact, you can't simply add up the percentage votes of the two parties and assume that will work, because people who will vote Reform will not vote Tory and vice versa.
No, quite. And again, the way that everything kind of breaks down over the course of the next few months leading up to the May elections is that, Reform are still very much on track to sort of sweep the board, are they not, in terms of, winning more and more seats, winning more and more power over more and more councils. And Kemi Badenoch, while, as you say, she looked quite good yesterday, having taken a sort of, brave decision to kick Robert Jenrick out of the party. At the end of the day, she's kind of running what many people describe as a busted flush.
And I still think she's a fundamentally flawed leader. And I know from the conversations I had with Robert Jenrick, when they went head to head in the Tory leadership battle about a year ago, she won 55% of the vote, he won 45%, I think it was, more or less. Yeah. There's been no attempt by her to sort of really involve him in the leadership of the Conservative Party. As far as was concerned, she won, and that was it.
Yeah,
there was they've barely spoken over the last year, and I think lots of people have worked with Kemi over the years. She's she knows her own mind, but she's not easy to work with, and she's just not that collegiate really. And the problem is if you if you're looking at it from the Conservatives' perspective, just last night in Gosport, another by-election. Local by-election, the Tory vote collapsed by 25%. Reform vote went up by 25%. The Tories win a seat from the award from the Lib Dems. So all this talk of progress by the Conservatives in the opinion polls, real votes happening out there, and the Tories are still struggling very badly.
Yes, because it's hard to know, and you're a former Tory yourself, what exactly they stand for, isn't it?
Well, to be fair to Kemi Badenoch, I think she is a pretty solid Conservative. The problem is we're in a parliamentary democracy, and you're electing 300 odd people, 325 plus, to be your representatives. And Liberal Democrats, I've spoken to talk about this, is if the average Conservative MP at the next election could choose whether to put the Lib Dems in power or Reform, a good quarter to a third of Tory MPs would choose the Lib Dems. And that's the fundamental problem, Mike. The fundamental problem with the Conservative Party. Staffist policy, personnel matters, and the heart, the instinct of a large number of Conservative MPs is not right-wing. They're centrists. They're squishy centrists. Right. They will not vote for the tough policies on immigration, on tax and crime that this country needs. A Reform Party will. And that ultimately is why people like Robert Jenrick made the decision. They know that their colleagues in the parliamentary party, too many of them, are fundamentally not tuned in to the instincts that the Britain needs and the average Conservative voter wants.
Yeah. And I think that is the problem. I mean, I heard this morning on Times Radio, actually, as I was listening on the way in, a Conservative MP, I can't remember who it was, describing Robert Jenrick as somebody who has now turned into a sort of frothing at the mouth man in favour of right-wingery.
Yeah. Yeah, and frothing at the mouth, that's the sort of thing that the left say about Conservatives.
Right.
And the thing is, the Conservatives have too many people like Simon Hart inside them because they basically don't like tough policies on immigration or tough policies on crime. It's not what they came into politics for. They came into politics to be in power regardless of the agenda. And people have had enough of that. They've had enough of it.
Yeah, absolutely right. We ran a poll this morning as to who might be the next Conservative to join Reform, and the poll results are in. Nearly 4,000 votes. Larry the Cat, 60%. James Cleverly, 20%. Wes Streeting, 12%. Boris Johnson in last place at 8%, who might be the next to join Reform. I mean, do you have a sort of a book running on who else from the Conservative Party might be next?
I don't actually. And I think reform. I was, very keen for, excuse me, Robert Jenrick to join the party because I think he has skills and status that really matter. But I think reform do have to be careful. If it looks or becomes just like it's the Conservative Party in a new form, I don't think voters will like that. Nigel Farage is generally a very different kind of politician from the average politician.
Yeah.
And reform is attracting ex-Labour voters, etc. It can't be the Conservative Party reheated. I don't want that, even as an ex-Conservative. I want something different. So I think it needs to judge very carefully now which form of Conservatives it takes, because certainly a lot of them I wouldn't take, and I think that's a danger for reform.
Yes, indeed. But I think, generally speaking, on balance, I would say, Tim, and I think you might agree, Reform are in a better position at this time now, at 8:44 in the morning, than they were yesterday.
Oh, 100%. People look now, increasingly, will better look at Nigel Farage surrounded by a team, and a serious team. Kemi Badenoch and Simon Hart and people may be throwing SHIT on Robert Jenrick now, but until yesterday he was a key member of their team. So what really has changed? And Reform now have someone who the Conservative Party thought was good enough for high office, in Nigel Farage's team. Slowly but surely, Nigel Farage is building the team that will look like a government in waiting, and that excites me.
Yes, I think so. Tim, great to see you. Hope you feel better soon. Get rid of that man flu, and we'll get you back in the studio as soon as possible. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great weekend.
Look forward to seeing you perhaps next week, Mike. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Tim Montgomery there, founder of Conservative Home, now Reform supporter, of course. Not a man that wants to be in the running for anything, because we've asked him about that before. But basically, he thinks, like I do, that Reform are now in a stronger position today with Robert Jenrick than they were yesterday without him. Graham says this: Kemi thought she had jumped the gun by sacking Jenrick yesterday. The reality was the announcement booked in by Nigel was to raise a judicial review against Keir Starmer. At that point, Jenrick wasn't guaranteed he was going to jump ship, but Kemi certainly pushed that on. I think so. And Dan says, I'm watching on my phone rather than a computer, so I can't add into the comments, but don't forget your fans on X, Mike. No, absolutely, of course I won't. Great show today, says Anne. You seem very comfortable and happy in your new role and master of your destiny, the best thing you ever did. And that's from Anne in Almeria in Spain. Very nice indeed. Regarding Jenrick, says Mel, you are right, Mike. Reform lacks parliamentary and ministerial experience. Kruger and now Jenrick bring this. It's all about reality, and I think it's a good move for Nigel. I think you have to be absolutely pragmatic about it. People on X and people on the YouTube chat as well are saying that, they're disappointed that I'm supposedly supportive of Tories joining Reform. It's not that I'm particularly supportive of it. I just think that it's an inevitability that at the end of the day, if you want to get into government, if you want to beat Keir Starmer, if you want to become the next powerful government in waiting, you need people like Robert Jenrick. You need to have people who have been in Parliament, who have been in cabinets, who have been ministers, in order to bulk out what you have as the Reform offering. So long as none of the Lib Dem whinge of the Tories come across, we'll be fine. I presume wing is what you mean, says Ian. I'd even accept Labour and Lib Dems. They were true to their party rather than being a faction hiding in another. And Wiley says Boris Johnson would be the kiss of death for Reform. And Swook says, I don't care who runs the country as long as it's for the people. Yeah, indeed. You're knocking the breakfast shows out of the park, says Azura Fox. The ratings are very impressive. Mainstream media shows can't keep up with you. It's quality viewing. Well, we are doing so well. I have to say thank you to all of you. We're absolutely kicking the arses out of every single other breakfast show, and that includes ITV, that includes Sky, that includes all of the other rivals that you might call what we are up against. The Mike Graham Show is the future. It is the one place to be every single weekday morning from 7 to 9. Lots of people saying we should do an extra hour as well. Coming up, though, of course, we're going to be doing an after show today, and I'm delighted to say that the after show today will be very enjoyable. It won't be too serious because Chris Walkie has come in, and he is known as Mr. Fizz. He's the man who brings the joy to this show, because he's going to be opening some bottles of alcohol, which we're going to drink with some alacrity, it has to be said. Coming up next, though, we've got time for just one more guest before the end of the show, and it is somebody that I've never actually spoken to before, so we're going to see how this goes. This is Alexandra Marshall, known as Ellie Melly, and we'll see what she's got to say for herself. Alexandra, very good morning to you.
see me and hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. So, it says here you're a writer, you're an artist, you've got many opinions on many things. So, introduce yourself to our audience because we're not familiar with you and your works. I see you've got The Spectator behind you. So tell us what your thoughts are on the current state of play in this country.
Well, I am the online editor for The Spectator Australia, and obviously my main job is as a writer, but I'm also an advisor to a senator here in Australia. So most of my life revolves around politics and political commentary. And of course, I'm sure your audience has noticed the free speech debate in Australia is kind of broken down, and suddenly we are competing with you on who can censor the public faster, Keir Starmer or Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? And these are the people who are supposedly from what you might have thought of in the past as the kind of the kinder, more gentle left side of politics. You know, the people who supposedly care about their electorate, the people who keep telling us all to be kind to each other and not to say anything horrible. And they are, without any question, without any shadow of a doubt, the most authoritarian people in the world right now.
Yes, how did the New York mayor put it? The warm comfort of collectivism. Well, in Australia, it's more of a cold chill as we're coming face to face with some legislation designed to basically stop any kind of intellectual criticism or historical thought that might offend people or in some way frighten them or make them feel alarmed, even if it is the truth. Now, at what point we lost track of the truth being the supreme right to have a conversation, I'm not quite sure. But we're definitely on that edge where we as a free society are having conversations that we thought were settled hundreds of years ago. And so while all this crazy stuff is happening on the world stage where Iran, they are fighting for their freedom against the Islamic Republic, Australia has designed a bill to combat Islamic terrorism, which gives Islamic hate preachers a way out and instead threatens jail to people who maybe are worried about Islamic terrorism and maybe call out hate preachers. So I don't know if you're following, but it doesn't make much sense to me. But this is how our leadership has gone. And of course, the leading party has now said, we've had Penny Wong, who is our foreign minister, say that the opposition, their leadership will collapse unless they agree with the government. Well, like the Tories, the Conservatives over here were quite capable of collapsing all on their own.
Yeah, I was going to say, how is the right in Australia in terms of the political right combating this Albanese kind of madness? Because like you say, you know, they put their arms around you, supposedly protect you. Before you know where you are, they're constricting your air and you're suffocating because they're squeezing you so hard. I mean, how is the right dealing with it? Are they forming a decent sort of, you know, barrier to this kind of madness?
Well, the Australian people can only dream of having a charismatic and organised figure such as Nigel Farage. I noticed you were debating whether or not it's okay to have defecting Tory MPs coming over. But of course, you're right. Farage will need experience and a little bit of pragmatism if he is to take over government. And that will include taking the best of the defecting Tories.
Right.
In Australia, we don't have the same kind of experienced political mind to take forward the Conservative movement. Our Liberal Party, or our coalition of the Liberals and the Nationals, is on its last legs. Their opinion polls have now, as a collective, sunk below One Nation, who was led by Senator Pauline Hanson, now has 4 senators in the federal parliament. Her movement, which has been going for about 30 years, used to be a fringe political right-wing party. It has now risen to outpolling the traditional Conservatives. Whether that will translate to actual lower house seats is yet to be seen. But it certainly says something that the Australian people on the right are looking for a different moral grounding that is not being offered by our Conservatives, who are the wettest of the wet. They're like your wet Tories.
Yes.
They want mass migration, although they know they can't say it, so they kind of say they don't, but then vote for it. They say net zero is wrong, but then they put forward net zero policies. They say they believe in free speech. They are the authors of even some of these new Labor policies. It's a liberal thought bubble, in some cases old liberal legislation that they dusted off. They are the ones who put in the e-safety commissioner, whom is famous now on the world stage for having some fairly public debates with Elon Musk and some lawsuits. So our Liberal Party, I don't see any way forward unless the power brokers are put out of power. I don't think they're going to have a revolution on their own. They just don't seem to have any will to live.
Interesting. And what's the sort of young vote looking like? Because in this country, we've got the sort of Gen Xers who are all about being woke and, you know, not being on the phone to anybody because it's upsetting and, you know, not getting out of bed because they're a bit anxious and they can't get on a train and all of that. But there's a sort of a cohort below that of people who are, like my son who just turned 19 yesterday, who are quite right-wing, and they're coming out as reform voters, they're coming out as reform supporters because they're sick to death of the sort of the nanny state. They're sick to death of being told that they have to be worried about everything. And they're actually, you know, emerging as a new kind of right-wing force. And reform have actually got a really, really big level of support amongst that kind of age group, you know, from say 16 to 21, something like that. You know, how's that looking in Australia?
Yes, well, we do have classrooms full of particularly young boys who let's say, make jokes that might be criminal later this year about gender identities. Shall we put it that way? So yes, there's definitely a grassroots rebellion, particularly online on platforms like TikTok. You will know that we've just banned social media for under 16s. One of the reasons being is that is where the MAGA movement managed to de-radicalize a lot of the youth from the left. That's how they got going. And the same is true with Nigel Farage. He's reaching young people and giving them an alternate view to what they're taught in school. Like, let's not forget, your country and my country, our children are stuck in this industrial scale woke complex until university. It's more than 15 years of indoctrination. And so the only access they get to alternate thought is the internet, which I'm sure is why Keir Starmer's side-eyeing it right now, as is our Prime Minister. But the most interesting group that we have of rebellion is the tradies, the young men who are trying to earn a living. They didn't go to university, they went to TAFE instead. They're out in the real world and they want to know why they work their asses off every day in the real world, building something of meaning, while they watch all these other people on the dole or in the activist community or doing absolutely nothing, contributing nothing, why they are earning more than they are. They can see that there is something wrong with the way society is ordered under this progressive landscape, and they are looking for alternatives. Now, with online, the fastest growing footprint, and indeed the biggest footprint of a political party, belongs to One Nation. And they have shifted their demographic from the over 60s, which they were for most of the 90s and the early 2000s, straight down to the 17s to 30. So this is definitely a shift. It's obviously not a majority. It takes a long time to undo that level of very strong green. I think 40% of Australians under 20 are Greens voters, which is an extinction level event for society. But definitely we have a shift toward the right.
And what about this ban on under 16s accessing social media? I mean, is it even possible to do? Because I was saying, going home yesterday afternoon, just travelling on public transport, you know, the schools were kicking out. It's about 3:30. Every single kid that I saw for aged about 11 to 15 or so were all on their phones, you know. I'm sure that some of them were looking at things they shouldn't have been looking at. Some of them were playing games. Some of them were on Snapchat, whatever it is. I mean, how do you actually make that work? How do you ban them from having access to that?
So how do I put this kindly? The people who wrote the legislation have never used social media, okay? It's not part of their lives. And so they have no idea how to regulate it. They don't even know which apps the kids are actually using. It's very telling that all of these regulations started solely as an attack on Twitter and that they had to think about other ones to expand it to in order to make it look legit. Really, I suspect it's mostly about banning Twitter. But with the apps, they forgot to ban any of the gaming apps, any of the new apps that the kids use, and some of the apps that they took it super seriously. So on TikTok, they said, "Are you over 16?" And I went, "Yep." And I went, "Thanks very much. That's it. We're done." On Twitter, they didn't even ask me because I've had my account for 20 years, so they assumed that I wasn't a toddler when I got it. I think most kids, I heard that they were basically using photographs of their Grand Theft Auto video game account. People, they were just zooming in, taking a photograph of that character, and then that was their author. They've got no idea. They have absolutely no idea what kids are doing. They are more likely to write a new platform than allow the government to tell them what to do. But what it has done is teach them a very important lesson about government, and that is that it's not always your friend. It didn't work. And the thing I find most interesting is this was life or death situation. It was sold to us as if we didn't do this, our children would die. And it's very clear it didn't work. It's very clear under 16s are no problem, they're still online. And yet we haven't heard another word about it since. Not a word.
It proves what I thought was going to be the case, which is that Keir Starmer, amongst many other things that he can't do, won't be able to do this either. Alexandra, brilliant to talk to you. Thank you so much. Great to see you. People are saying, thank God you've got this sensible woman on the show. Get her on more often. We have to do it on a regular basis. Brilliant. Good to see you. Have a great day and a great weekend. Please make Alexandra a regular guest. It's quite frightening to see the same things happening in Australia, says Steve. Superb, Alexandra. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again very soon on the true home of common sense right here in London. And hopefully we'll see you over here at some point as well. Alexandra there, fantastic. What a fantastic woman. We've got to take more and more of her views coming up. Pedant of the day, we've had quite a few suggestions. I mean, I think, Mike, your wristwatch is running 7 seconds slow, says Ben. Yeah, thanks very much indeed. I think Pedant of the day has to be the guy that pointed out that there was a fingerprint on the old YouTube plaque. Mike says, Mr. Fish and Chips, you have a hair out of place. I can't watch anymore. Yeah, very good. And listen, we've made it to the end of another week. It's been a fabulous week. Thank you to all of you for paying attention. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Thank you to all of you for making this the most successful breakfast show in history, I think. I hope Christopher had a great birthday and you all enjoyed your meal, says it is spam. Yeah, it was quite expensive. They sent me back a few quid, so I'm going to have to ask you for more super chats in order to continue to be able to live my lifestyle supporting my children. Lots and lots of you have joined in this week. Many of you have had great contributions to make, and thank you very much indeed for all of them. We'll be back, of course, on Monday with another series of incredible shows, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't forget Plank of the Week coming out tonight at 7 p.m. That's out there for your delectation, and we'll do a big roundup over the course of the weekend on Sunday afternoon, where you can see the best of what we did all week, and just keep hitting that like button, keep hitting that subscribe button. We've got after shows as well coming every single day. And today's after show, I want you to join us because it's going to be a bit of fun. We're going to be talking to Chris Walkie, who is, of course, Mr. Fizz. He might not like that nickname, but, you know, he's the man that brings the bubbles and the joy into the show. We're going to be celebrating the first 2 weeks of our incredible existence here at the Mike Graham Show. We're going to be opening some English bottles of Fizz, and we're going to be drinking a bit of it, and it's going to be fabulous. So if you haven't done it yet, come and join our Substack. Join the after show every single day after 9 a.m. And always remember, no matter how much of it there is out there, do not be a plank.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.